Hey, what's going on, fight fans? Hey, this is Coach D, the Wild Man, coming at you again. New show we got going on called Growing the Sport. Growing the Sport is that when we change the game up and we start finding new ways to promote the sport, we're getting away from the status quo. So we want to talk about new talent, the mergers of trying to get wrestling and MMA together. So many things we're going to talk about. So I got my friend Chris on here. We talk a lot of mess. So I can't predict where it's going to go, but it's going to go somewhere fun because that's how we do. But the main thing we're getting together on is today's topic is we're talking about tradition versus entertainment. And what I mean, when it comes to wrestling, like collegiate wrestling, it's a lot of tradition involved. It's quote unquote a family business. My dad wrestled, and the son wrestled, and so on and so forth. But now when you get to the growing their brand and growing the sport, and people want to branch out into like mixed martial arts, is a lot of extra stuff going on, like drama, back and forth, from anything from name calling to, all kind of foolishness. So now we're going to talk about what all that. What's up, lady? How you doing?
You stealing my husband from me?
Did you miss him?
I don't know. Miss is an understatement.
Understatement. He ain't nobody. He ain't shit.
Ain't nobody. What? That's not very nice. I don't think I want you to talk to him anymore.
Don't boost his head up like that. He's already big enough.
That's true. You told me to bar last night.
Good seeing you. All right, as you can see, we run loose around here. So we're going to have a fun time. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Chris, what's going on, man?
What's up, man?
All right, so let's get into it. Right, we've been having many conversations about not only how to grow the sport of wrestling, how to grow the sport of mixed martial arts. I feel, and I know you feel the same way too, that we should be bringing more wrestlers into mixed martial arts because that's a staple that's been proven. Guys like Daniel Cormier, Ben Askren, Dominic Cruz, Danny Henderson, they're all been successful when they have true wrestling backgrounds. So, but the question is, do wrestling even want to be a part of mixed martial arts because their traditional way of doing things? They're not into the BS talking. They want a lot of low-key traditional ways of doing things. Do you think that's sustainable in an entertainment market?
So first part, I think it's been proven that wrestlers do want to do MMA. I think it's a natural segue for them as they transition out of wrestling. It gives them a venue to use their skills they've learned over, since most of them wrestling since they're 5, 6, 7 years old, right? I think for wrestling fans, we enjoy watching the wrestlers dominate MMA because statistically they have.
Yeah.
I think a lot of your traditional wrestling fans get turned off by kind of like the WWE boxing atmosphere to it, where they do the weigh-ins, everyone's talking crap and they're just slinging mud at each other. Like I don't particularly watch fighting to watch people talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I do watch some MMA, but I'll scour for college wrestling or Olympic wrestling or freestyle. I'll go on the internet and watch like some of the bigger freestyle tournaments before I'll watch UFC anyways, just because I would rather watch wrestling. I just want to see the action.
But you're a diehard wrestling fan. All your kids wrestle. You came from wrestling, so it's kind of even though I get what you're saying, the casual fan wants entertainment, and a lot of people say wrestling is boring. That all you do is take down, ground and pound. They don't know how to strike. They don't know how to kick. So a lot of people say wrestlers aren't that entertaining. Then you have your certain breakout stars, but it's not a lot of them overall.
Well, I think you're forgetting I started off in jiu-jitsu. Okay. I didn't wrestle until I got to high school. I did jiu-jitsu most of my life before I started wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So I say this as someone who has done both, and even like in jiu-jitsu, right? Like what you taught, don't use it unless you have to. Mm-hmm. Don't instigate, don't do all this stuff. So like there's martial arts in general, wrestling being a martial art, and it's in reality also, right? The first thing you're taught is not to instigate, not to bring someone, goad someone into bringing aggression towards you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even like when you compete, even in like jiu-jitsu, you're not, you still bow before, you bow at the ref, you bow before to your opponents, you show respect to your opponents, and then you go, right? And you get done, you shake your hands, like wrestling, you shake your hands before the match, you shake hands after the match. And even when wrestlers do get when certain wrestlers do get a little rowdy and don't show the sport the proper respect, every fan in that gym, including fans of that person's team, get in them. Like there's no tolerance for it.
Oh, now I wouldn't say that. I'll bring up one person. Look at Ben Askren. He is known for shit talking as much as the Conor McGregor. He's claimed the fame coming into the UFC is running his mouth. So
Yeah,
he came into the UFC 19-0, running his mouth. So he's even more successful because he runs his mouth. Right? Would you agree?
I would agree. He got a shot at UFC, even though he wasn't good enough to be there because he ran his mouth.
Yeah, but when it comes to entertainment, that's not being the best at the sport is not the prerequisite of being popular or making the most money. Is being able to get the crowds behind you and get the fans to buy tickets to want to see you, whether you're a top wrestler or not. Look at Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen didn't have the best MMA record. I mean, he came from wrestling, but he didn't have the best MMA record, but he knew how to run his mouth, and that made him even more popular than his win and loss record.
I'm just saying there tends to be a correlation between your ability to fight and how much you talk. Generally, the better you are at fighting, the less you talk. There's exceptions to every rule, but for the most part.
Okay, well, like I said, with that being said, we could bring up another high-level, comes from wrestling, high-level fighter was in the UFC. But look at Demetrius Johnson. He was ranked pound for pound best. Still got cut from the UFC because he didn't run his mouth. He didn't believe in it. He believed in the traditional side of the sport. So because he believed in the tradition, he went and run his mouth. And eventually he did get cut from the UFC. Now he's in one championship. He's doing well, so he hasn't lost the step. But the fact is, because he went and run his mouth is why he wasn't as popular with UFC fans. I'm not saying fans in general. I'm saying UFC fans, even though he was the pound for pound best.
I get that, and I agree that there's a balance you got to strike. But like I said, there's plenty of ways. There's plenty of ways to get the blood flowing without, you can talk without being disrespectful. Mm-hmm. You can still get drama without disrespect being involved. And that's one of my bigger problems with it, right? Like, even when I wrestled, there were some kids I was just like, I wanted to fight them in real life. On my own team even? Yes. And would there be a little bit of John in the practice room? Yes. But we never took that. We never took any of that. Like, at the end of the day, we still respected each other, even though we hated each other because of the work we put in. Like, we respected each other for doing the sport that most people don't want to do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So even with some guys I wrestled with that I did not like at all, there was still a baseline respect that we had, that we knew there wasn't a line to be crossed when we walked out of that wrestling room. Okay, so let's talk about the sports in general. Why do we watch sports on TV as fans? But it's because we enjoy it. But if you're a company broadcasting sports, you broadcast it because you want to make money. Okay, so if a sport can't bring in more fans, can't bring in more ticket sales, can't bring in more viewership, they're going to see it as a failing business model, and they're going to go ahead and get rid of it. I mean, look at the article you sent me about they're trying to cut sports, on the college level because they're not making money. So like I said, is it a failed model? Is tradition a failed business model? Well, no, the article I sent you shows that colleges would actually make more money if they had more non-revenue generating sports. Mm-hmm. Because of all of the, so like using wrestling, for example, 9.9 scholarships. The school's on the hook for basically 10 scholarships.
Okay.
the average wrestling roster is 33 kids.
Okay.
So you got, even if you split those scholarships in half and take it out to 20 half scholarships, right? You still have 13 kids paying a full tuition every year that wouldn't otherwise be at your school if they weren't on the wrestling team.
Okay.
So what the article was saying was because of all the non-scholarship athletes you have paying full tuition in these non-revenue generating sports, if you actually had more non-revenue generating sports, your athletic department would have a net profit due to all the tuition getting paid from all the kids you're not paying to go to your school.
Okay. All right, so let me ask you this. So do you think wrestling should get into the MMA business, or do you think they should keep them separate?
I don't mind wrestlers going in MMA because they're good at it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's an avenue. So like the IOC, so like a lot of like USA Wrestling, for example, there's a reason why starting in 2016, you got $250,000 if you want a gold medal.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You know, they're trying to, and like if Jordan Burroughs would have repeated, he would have got $500,000 for winning that gold medal.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to incentivize financially to keep wrestlers in wrestling. And I think ideally for the sport, that is the best thing for the sport is to keep the best wrestlers in wrestling. And you got to do that with financial incentives.
So do you think the incentives are big enough across the board, or you think this only the cream of the crop has opportunities to that money? Just like the UFC, even though we have plenty of people in the UFC, only your top stars are making the real money. So it's kind of almost the same thing.
Well, yeah, like anything, even any sport, you name a sport, the best of the best make the most money, right? But I mean,
so how would you consider Jordan Burroughs? You consider him a celebrity, or just in certain circles? Do you think he has transcended the sport compared to like Daniel Cormier? He wrestled, all the way through, a couple shots at the Olympics, then went into MMA. Now he's making, sometimes $1 million a fight. So he's now, reached the point of mixed martial arts has got him making the real money. So how would you compare Daniel Cormier to a Jordan Burroughs?
I mean, obviously Burroughs doesn't have the name recognition that a Cormier does, right? But UFC also has a significantly larger media presence, ability to get fighters. Like they're in the business of promoting names, right? Whereas I think even today, the wrestling community is in the business of promoting the sport, right? Like we put the sport above all else. So I think sometimes when we have a great wrestler, we don't necessarily promote him by name, because I don't really think wrestling, we're more concerned about growing it, getting more kids into it and all that. So inside the wrestling community, sure, everybody knows Jordan Burroughs is the greatest American wrestler to ever step on a mat. I mean, he is the dude. You know what I mean? So those of us in the wrestling community, yeah, we know who he is. We don't, without question, everybody knows who he is. And I think, USA Wrestling, because Jordan Burroughs has sponsors, like all these guys at the top tier have sponsors, but these sponsors don't put them in. Like if Jordan Burroughs was sponsored by Nike, I mean, you're not going to see a Nike commercial with Jordan Burroughs in it. So I mean, I think part of that is USA Wrestling needs to be like, hey, if you're going to sponsor our guys, let's besides the money, let's do something for us. Grow the sport, get these guys' faces out there. So I think there needs to be a more coordinated effort at the national level with the wrestling organization itself. I would put a lack of promoting of individuals at the national level as organizational fault. I wouldn't put that at the sport or the wrestler themselves. I just think the organization doesn't put a focus on it, because the organization is focused on growing the sport. Okay,
so let's go with growing the sport. Growing the sport, who makes the money? So say the sport's growing phenomenally. Who's making the money? It's not the wrestlers, because they don't hardly make any money.
Well, I mean, USA Wrestling, that money all goes back into training and travel and all that stuff for the wrestlers, right? So like, even though they don't pay the wrestlers, they pay the wrestlers get to train for free. They get to eat for free. They get to travel around the world for free at all their competitions. They get put up at their competitions for free. You know what I mean? So they like, I don't know, indirectly get paid while they're training and competing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like so like most of their money they're getting paid is they get paid for winning. Like there's prize money for winning. They get paid by their sponsors. You know, that's how most wrestlers make their money is through sponsorships.
Okay. Well, like I said, on the MMA side, you know, if you're a pro in MMA and you're fighting on the local level, depending on the promotion that you're competing for, you know, it could be, if you're brand new, it could be low as, you know, $300 to show up and $300 to win, so you're making $600 at the end of the night. Or if you know how to sell tickets, you know what I'm saying, and everybody's coming to see you, you can get a percentage of ticket sales. I know fighters out there with not so great records, but they're a household name in their town or in their state. Everybody knows them, and they sell out a large amount of tickets, and they end up making, you know, a couple of $1,000s, you know, a fight, you know, just because of ticket sales, you know. So you add on that. I mean, some people can find a path to make money in mixed martial arts and as a wrestler, because opportunities are there depending on where you go. And then if you keep growing, you keep winning, you can rise to the sport. So
I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am perfectly okay with wrestlers going over to MMA. I think it's a natural place to go if you're not that wrestler that's going to go compete for the world championships and the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something you want to do. You know, you want to go right into MMA. That's fine. It makes sense.
So should you want to leave it up to the fighter? What if that fighter is a natural, you know, BSer like Conor McGregor and everybody loves it? You wouldn't want him to keep on doing it if he's making it work?
I'm saying for me personally, it makes me not want to watch them. And if I do see them fight, I want to see them lose. I want to see them get their asses beat.
Well, tell them how you really feel. So, how do you feel about like a Conor McGregor?
Every time I see Conor McGregor, I want to see him get fucked up. Every time. Every time. When Khabib whooped his ass, that was like a perfect scenario for me, because Khabib just does his thing. He don't talk. Everything he did was in response to McGregor antagonizing him, and then he just beat the brakes off of him. And that's exactly how it should go.
So you see Khabib as the right kind of guy for the sport, not a Conor McGregor.
Yeah, Khabib puts in the work. Like, you can see videos all over the place. Khabib rolling around with some of the best high school wrestlers in the country, just getting them work. Cause, you know, with Cormier, because, you know, Cormier is a high school wrestling coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so Cormier brings in Khabib in his room. He has one of the top-ranked kids in the country, and Khabib's rolling with him. And does Khabib beat the crap out of the kid? Yep. But he's giving back, because Khabib, you know, also comes from a wrestling background too.
Well, see, but the thing with Khabib though, if he's not fighting, you don't hear from him. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. You got to keep yourself out there so people can, you know, follow you as a fan.
But anytime you put Khabib on the main event, everyone's going to show up to watch.
Well, yeah, if you're a hardcore fan, yeah.
He could disappear for 2 years. You could not hear a word out of him. You put him on a main event fight, sold out.
I don't know about that.
Sold out.
Yeah,
sold out.
I don't know about that. If he was gone for 2 years.
Just like when GSP fell off the map for like 2 or 3 years and then came back to fight again, sold out.
Okay, okay, let's go with that. So you're talking about a particular type of fighter who has a particular type of fan base. Khabib's from Russia, has the whole Russian, you know, nation behind him. GSP is from Canada, has the whole Canada side backing him. A lot of American fighters, you know how wishy-washy we are. One day we like you, the next day once you lose, we don't like you no more. So keeping a major fan base is not easy here in the States. So if you're not staying relevant.
Come on, man. Canada's got the population of Texas.
Yeah, but they all show up.
It's a smaller market than Texas.
But it is. But now when everybody shows up, you winning.
And even then, he's French Canadian, so he has like 7 million people that are behind him.
Well, there you go. There you go. All right, so let's talk about So you said Jordan Burroughs is the most famous wrestler you know, or is he the most famous, or is it the most popular now? Who you say is the most famous wrestler ever? And
Dan Gable is the most famous. Dan Gable or Cael Sanderson are the most famous ones ever.
Okay, so out of those two, would you say their success matched what they've done? Like their success now, would you say their career match where they are right now, or should they be bigger, wealthier than they are? In your opinion?
Well, what I know, I'm pretty sure they're both millionaires. So
okay,
because I'm pretty sure that Cael Sanderson makes like $500,000 or $600,000 a year, or something crazy. Him and Tom Brands at Iowa and Penn State, they're making six figures to coach wrestling every year.
Okay, so they're coaches. So they parlay their wrestling into becoming coaches. Okay, let's talk about that. All right, how many doors are available to wrestlers that you can think of currently? If you're not going into the UFC, anything like that, what are the doors you can walk into?
Coaching is pretty much number one.
That's
but
about it.
You're a coach at a good program. You're making six figures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you're at a Big Ten program. You're probably making six figures or close to it.
So do you think the sport needs to evolve, or just need to be doing better at marketing?
I just think the marketing needs to evolve. The sport has evolved.
Mm.
The sport has better athletes. It has more action. The sport is better than it was 30 years ago. Mm. There are better wrestlers now than there were 30 years ago. There's more talent now than there was 30 years ago. I mean, the sport itself is physically better, especially at the freestyle level. You know, so I mean, the sport itself has evolved. It's just, the marketing's been the same for 50 years.
Okay. So who are your? Give a couple guys. Who are your upcoming guys? Once a Jordan Burroughs retires, who are some of the upcoming guys that you can name that may take over the sport?
I mean, you got Jaden Cox. I think he's right there on the brink. You got Kyle Dake, who has been wrestling Burroughs toe-to-toe for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, once Burroughs, I mean, you got David Taylor. I mean, those guys all were great in high school and college. But I think as far as like at that next international level, I think they're right there on the brink of just becoming absolutely dominant. Mm-hmm. Those are like the three dudes I think that for the next 5 to 7 years are probably going to rule the sport.
Okay. So after you graduate college, this is just for the casual fans. After you graduate college, what are your options as a wrestler? I mean, like I said, what tournaments can you keep on competing at?
Well, I know. So for like a lot of top tier guys, you generally will go join a club at an RTC or something where you can get training, where you can keep on training, and then you got multiple international freestyle and Greco events around the world. And then every year you got the world championships. Every 4 years you got the Olympics. You know, so for the most part, a lot of these guys will join a club, you know, wrestle out of one of the regional training centers. A lot of them get picked up as graduate assistants for the college team, so they'll basically not get paid to coach. Like they'll be they'll be graduate assistants or volunteer assistants, but they get to work in the room with the college kids all season. So basically, they basically coached in order to train, essentially.
Okay. So would they be considered independent? So you just register your name to compete, or you got to be a part of a club to compete?
So what I can tell, what I've seen is they're all part of some club, whether it's Sunkist Kids or Nittany Lion Wrestling Club or Buckeye Wrestling Club or Hawkeye Wrestling Club. Like generally they're all tied to somebody. Mm-hmm. And those wrestling club, you know, those clubs have coaches and athletes that train year round basically. So
all right,
that's usually what happens.
So let's use your kids as an example. Your oldest. What kind of career do you see him having in wrestling, or you think he wants a career in wrestling? Like how would you steer his career to go as far as he can in wrestling? to make the most amount of money or whatever? How would you?
I mean, I just tell him do what he. I mean, I basically just want to do what he wants.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if D1 coaches are calling and you want to go D1, go D1. If you don't like the atmosphere, if you don't like the atmosphere of D1 and you want to go D2, go D2. I mean, if you want to wrestle in the Olympics, well then go pick the college that has the coach you think is going to be able to get you to that next level. And when you get done with your wrestling career, you know, make sure you're jumping into the team trials and, you know, senior worlds and all that stuff, and just trying to, you know, figure out what you want to do and then pick the path that's going to get you there. I don't really push him. I try to stay out of it.
Okay.
I try to give him guidance every now and then, right? But like at the end of the day, with wrestling, man, you got to want to do it. If you don't want to do it, there's no point in even trying. Like, so I just want him to go put himself in the best situation where he's happy and he's, you know, in a spot where he wants to put in the work to get where he needs to go. I mean, I'm not going to force him, like, just because if he has D1, D2, and D3 recruiting him and he doesn't want to go D1, I'm not going to sit here and, you know, strong arm him to go in D1 or whatever. I mean, it's what he thinks he's going to do to make, you know, for him to be where he wants to be, you know.
Okay,
it's his career.
Break down the gaps between D3, D2, and 3-1. Like I said, you know, how far apart is the talent? Because, you know, when you look at it that way, you know, you say 1 is the best, 2 is the second best, and 3 is the third best. But how does that break down?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell, man, because I think there's a lot of D1 talent in D2. And it just either didn't work out money-wise or location-wise for some of those kids, or grade-wise, right? But, I mean, obviously your top-tier D1 guys are the best, right? But I think there's a lot of D1 guys that could get beat by a lot of D2 guys. Right. Or it was a, you know, you're D2 because you didn't know the right people. You know, sometimes you just didn't get looked at because there was no one able to get your name out there, someone to look at you. So you got put at D2, even though you're probably a D1 caliber wrestler. I mean, it's just from what I can tell. I mean, there's a lot of good wrestling at the D2 and D3 levels.
So it's not a walk on. You still got to be recruited to be D1, 2, or 3. Somebody has to recruit you.
Yeah, I mean, you could walk on it. I mean, you can walk on anywhere, really, right? But I mean, generally, from what I can tell, the D1 guys start earlier trying to recruit because it's more competitive to recruit at the D1 level. Mm-hmm. And the D2 and the D3 guys, you know, they kind of fish a little bit just to see, you know, get some feelers out there. I don't think they really push hard until maybe you're a senior, from what I can tell. But I mean, I know the D1 guys, they start coming early and fast because it's very competitive at the D1 level to get recruits. But I mean, talent-wise, I mean, it's not like Division I football and Division II football. It's not that big of a talent gap. It's not like that crazy. To compare one sport to the other. Okay.
All right. So you being a coach, now I'm looking at it like how I look at it with MMA. When you get people who want to try out for wrestling, do you discourage anybody? Go, hey, look, man, you don't got no talent. You don't got nothing. You don't need to be on this mat. Or do you let everybody try out until they quit? How do you gauge if somebody should be on the mat or not? Or you just not worry about it? You just see where they go?
I will never turn away anybody, ever. I'll never cut a kid, ever. I will explain to the kids that are starting late or that aren't that good at the beginning that, like, hey, with enough investment into the process of the sport, you can, worst case, be serviceable for a dual team. Like, you will eventually get to the point where you can win some matches. You just have to have patience and put in the work and listen to what the coaches are saying to you and practice 100% all the time, right? I'm never going to turn a kid away from the sport, because even if they don't end up being that great, the shit they get taught, or when they leave my room and they go out in the real world and have to survive on their own, they're going to have the tools to go do that. So in some cases, I'm playing substitute dad. In some cases, I'm just playing like a big brother. And in some cases, I'm just straight up. They got both their parents. They got a good situation around them, and I'm just there to push them.
Okay.
I mean, there's every kind of situation you can think of when you have to coach. And sometimes as a wrestling coach, you're more personable with the kids, so you have to understand.
Oh, look at that bird chest.
What's that?
Look at that bird chest. What up, man? What are you doing, man?
Coach V, man.
You see that dude we took to what's it called?
Yeah.
Oh,
South Beach? Yeah. His fool. And so say hi.
Don't be scared, man. Get over here. Let me see what you're talking about. What you been doing, man? How are you trying to wrestle?
Huh?
How are you trying to wrestle? You any good?
He's all right. He's all right.
Yeah. Hey, don't
Something wrong with my abs.
flat chest. We don't care about that.
You saying you got a flat chest?
I know. I'm not a girl. I'm not titties. I'm not fat. There's like something right there.
You'll be all right. Disappear.
Disappear.
Hey, so now let's I'm put you on the spot now. All right. So the climate we're in with all this foolishness between racism and so on and so forth.
Yep.
What's going on with all this hair cutting of black athletes who have dreads? What's going on with that? Why is that such a big issue that people feel the need to cut a man's hair?
So as a referee, I will give you my point of view on this. One,
Okay.
the rule changed, so it's not an issue anymore. You can have any length of hair you want now. It's irrelevant. But before that, right, there was very clear and direct guidelines on hair length and how far it could protrude past the headgear. And if it did, you had to have a hair cover. That hair cover was required to be attached to the headgear, and you have to have it with you when you weigh in. So if you don't have that hair cover with you when you weigh in, and then you show up to the mat with this piece of equipment that you did not get verified at weigh-ins to be allowed, then your two options are, well, to forfeit or cut your hair. And it doesn't just happen. And it didn't just happen. It just so happened that one instance got put on the news. I've seen kids get their hair cut of all colors at tournaments ever since I've been wrestling. It happens. It's been a normal par for the course thing. Now they got rid of the rule because they want to bring more kids into the sport. So they want kids to have to change their hairstyle just to wrestle.
But like I said, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been away for a minute, but to openly have a ref cut a person's hair is, I consider that a bit much. But I get what you're saying. If it's been an unwritten rule forever. It's just now
it's a written rule. It's a written rule. It was a written rule. It's not unwritten. It's written. It's in the rule book.
Okay, but telling the wrestler cut your hair or you get forfeited is different than having a ref, a official, cut that person's hair. Is what I mean. Why would they think it's okay?
The ref didn't cut his hair.
It's a wrestler.
The ref didn't cut his hair. The ref sent him off to get his hair cut.
No, wasn't there an incident where a female cut a wrestler's head? I think I saw that too, right?
The trainer cut his hair because that's who cuts the hair.
Oh, right? It was a trainer.
He got sent to the trainer with his coaches to get his hair cut within regs.
Okay, I must have read
right.
it.
So
I could.
Now, like I said,
female.
Like I said, they got rid of the rule because they want to bring more kids in the sport. They don't want kids to have to teenagers are pretty attached to their hair, as we all know. So instead of making these kids have to change their hairstyle to wrestle, we're like, screw it. It doesn't matter. You can have whatever hair you want from now on.
Okay.
But really, what it came down to is a safety thing, right? There's certain hairstyles the hair is rough, so you can dig your head into people's faces and scratch and cut their faces with your hair.
Mm-hmm.
That's why even if you shave your hair, it has to be like thick. It can't be starting to grow again because it's all prickly, and you can like really scratch someone's face with your head. That's what the whole hair ruling was really for, was protect people's faces and stuff from getting scratched by rough hair.
Okay. So let's go with this topic. Females in wrestling. They are seem like they're on a roller coaster ride. So is it more so women winning in overall tournaments, or more so the rise and them winning in their own tournaments? Where are you seeing the most push at?
I think the most push you're seeing is men in the sport accepting it and wanting it to be a thing, and wanting to, and helping push these organizational bodies into giving women their own platform to do it. And you also have second and third generation female athletes now who are invested in the sport like men have been for generations.
Okay.
So I think you're getting high level female coaches that are also pushing this down, and they have the support of the whole wrestling community to also make it happen. And there's something to be said for it, because I mean, with Title IX, also it's beneficial for the sport as a whole to get more women's programs, because it will allow to offset the men's program, and it will reduce the chances of the men's programs getting cut.
Okay, so what's Title IX?
Title IX was basically law got passed so you got equal opportunity access for men and women in sports and at the college level. Okay. So that got turned into, well, you got to have the same number of scholarships. So when they want to add women's sports, if they don't have enough women's scholarships, they'll either add more women's sports or just get rid of men's scholarships to make the women's numbers be the same.
Mm-hmm. So how many? I don't know if you noticed that I was asking. How many colleges do you know that have female wrestling programs now?
I think it's somewhere in the high 30s, maybe low 40s.
Okay.
Somewhere
compared to how many men programs that you know of?
There's at least 300 and some change between all the divisions for men.
Oh wow. Okay, so still a long
like
way to go.
60. There's like 68 or 70ish at the Division I level.
Mm-hmm.
But between Division I, 2, and 3, I think there's like 330ish somewhere in there across the board for men's.
So are women having their own tournaments, like an all female tournament, like a Fargo or something on that level, or it's still not there yet?
They have a women's division at Fargo. They have a college women's national championship for wrestling.
Okay.
They wrestle freestyle though.
Why just freestyle? Now I'm picking your brain now.
Well, I mean, that's what everyone wrestles in the Olympics, and the girls have always been wrestling freestyle. So I guess that's what they decided, just because the only thing they can do is the Olympics. So,
yeah. Okay.
Because they're kind of because really folk style was made for collegiate level wrestling, high school wrestling, for insurance purposes, basically to try and make it safer than freestyle. Mm-hmm. But women's wrestling is kind of like an afterthought. So they kind of came after all that happened. So since they were already wrestling, since really their only avenue to wrestle, besides being on a boys team in high school, was to wrestle freestyle in the off season. That's what most of them have been doing, is freestyle. So I mean, I guess it makes sense that they would wrestle freestyle in college. I mean, I wish men would wrestle freestyle in college, but that's never going to happen. That's just my opinion on that. I'm a much bigger fan of freestyle than I am of folk style anyway.
Okay.
I'm gonna get a lot of shit for that, but.
Well, yeah, because I'm about to double down on it. Why are you a bigger fan of freestyle than folk? Why? What's the difference and why?
I mean, freestyle is just more exciting.
Okay.
Like, think about it this way. Like, so don't get me wrong, I love folk style wrestling. But folk style wrestling to the casual fan, there's a lot more that like I would watch folk style wrestling for strategically, which is what makes it entertaining for me, right? It's kind of like why like I love watching baseball, because I understand and I really, really like the strategy of everything that happens in a baseball game. Mm-hmm. Whereas a casual person's like, I'll go watch it in person, but I'm not going to watch it on TV. I think in folk style wrestling, it's like that. Someone will be like, I might go watch it in person, but I'm not going to watch it on TV. Because the atmosphere of a wrestling match is cool regardless of what style. But freestyle is so fast paced and has a lot more action involved. So I mean, it's a better platform to get more fans and to watch the sport.
Okay, I thought folk style was the one that gave you more freedom to where you can damn near almost slam somebody, to the mat. I thought that's why they changed up and added folk style because it had more freedom. No, okay, I mean I got that wrong.
Freestyle, you can straight up drop someone on their head. You can suplex somebody. Folk style, you can't suplex people.
Okay, so then what brought on folk style then? I mean, I'm missing something now.
Well, that's what I was saying when they were bringing wrestling into the colleges and the high schools back in like the 30s and 40s, and they were starting to get it growing. They basically created folk style as like a safer form of wrestling because then you got to worry about like kids getting hurt, insurance, and all this stuff. So like it kind of built up that way, and they kind of stuck. Because like really, Canada kind of does some folk style now, and India kind of does some folk style now, but folk style is pretty much exclusively American style of wrestling. So
yeah, and then
the rest of the world does freestyle and retro.
It was American. It was created primarily as American style, but I don't think I've ever heard a lot of injuries in wrestling. Maybe it's just me. I've never heard no big news like, oh my God, we have a death in wrestling. And I've never heard that. So.
I mean, I haven't either, but the chance of you getting your neck broken freestyle is much higher than folk style.
Oh, okay, well, yeah.
I mean, it's a liability thing, honestly. Like, I would love to see like, we're pretty good at the international level, even though our kids don't wrestle freestyle as early as everybody else, because folk style still does give you some good basis for, the styles do kind of all intermingle, right? But just for me, this is a personal preference. I like to watch freestyle more. I like to referee it better. I like to referee it more, and I like to referee folk style.
Okay.
We're
gonna start wrapping it up. Okay, if you had a friend that never seen wrestling a day in their life, and you wanted to get them hooked, what tournament would you bring them to?
Oh, Fargo.
Fargo across the board?
Fargo.
All right, why?
Well, one, it's a state representative tournament, so you get the best wrestlers from every state in the country. There's like 5,000 kids at it, and it's the best of the best. Like those finals matches are disgusting.
Okay, so is Fargo the biggest?
In America, yeah.
No, the biggest tournament period. Out of for high school? I mean,
yeah, high school. 100%.
Okay. All right. Right. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna from this point on, we're gonna start try to get at least twice a week doing the podcast so we can start debating on some things. I think it's time for us to get in some crap. All right, but Fight Fans, hey, this is the first time we want to bring out some new topics, some new discussions. So this was Growing the Sport, where we talk about combat sports in general as a whole. So you're going to see more of this. Chris is my dog. We go back for a minute, and we talk noise. And this is a PC moment.
Pretty tame. This first one was pretty tame. We haven't broken in yet.
Yeah, so the next one, we may turn up a little bit. So, hey, just keep your ears open to what happens next. But we're going to start. The main thing, we're talking about growing the sport of combat sports across the board. A lot of sports are separate. Jiu-jitsu does their own thing. Kickboxing, boxing, wrestling, all the sports do their own thing. And there's very few crossovers. Mixed martial arts is supposed to be a crossover for everybody who does the individual sports to learn something new and grow in a whole new sport. That's what mixed martial arts was supposed to be growing into, but we have a long way to go and we need to definitely get there. So that's what these conversations are all about. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. This is Coach D. Talk to my man Chris. Until you hear from us again, peace out.
Later.